Welcome to a Stepping Stones interview. I'm Caroline Stevens, and today I'm interviewing Justin Walker of the New Chartist Movement. So Justin is going to be speaking to us via Skype from Devon. Welcome, Justin. Can you see me?
I can see you, Caroline.
Brilliant. We first met, it must have been the middle of last year now, and you held a New Chartist event down near Chichester. And it was really interesting. You were launching the New Chartist Movement. You had these brilliant ideas. You brought a group of people, such as myself, together to help support you. So here I am today, wanting to interview you and to get the message out to a wider audience, we hope. So, Justin, over to you. What is the New Chartist Movement all about?
Okay, here goes. Really, we all know the symptoms that are affecting humanity at the moment, and it can be anything from chemtrails to the taxation system to people becoming redundant, wars, famines. I mean, God, there's a whole list of things where people feel there must be solutions to these problems. Brexit or Remain, what's the European Union all about? Medical side to things, are there cures for cancer? You know, what's happening on the telephone, you know, on the what do you call it, those wretched masks and...
the 5G with the cancer-inducing and dementia.
Yeah, the 5G. I mean, gosh, there's dozens of symptoms where, quite literally, humanity is under attack.
Yeah, for sure.
And what we're saying is, well, hang on, let's just stand back for one moment and look at the mindset that is attacking us, this corporate mindset that is taking great relish in absolutely putting humanity into misery whilst making a huge profit from it.
Yeah.
And when you do, you realize very quickly that there are two ways to bring down the house of cards. There are two ways strategically to completely destroy the mindset that is imposing so much misery on humanity. And those two things are what really brought the Chartists together. The first one is the fact that our common law heritage has been deliberately airbrushed by successive parliaments over the last 100 years, probably since 1911, though some people say before that. But nonetheless, we have seen Roman statute laws coming in. These are acts and statutes passed by Parliament whereby you no longer involve a jury. You have judges now acting as judge and jury in county courts and family courts and magistrates' courts where the jury has been sidelined. But if you know your common law, if you know your Great Charter of 1215, and the ancient laws before that going to King Alfred and beyond that, the Malmutic laws, you realize very quickly that a jury of randomly selected people can annul bad legislation, unjust legislation passed by Parliament, which means we, the people, are in charge. We, the people, are sovereign. We, the people, have the final say.
You try telling that to the MPs, though, because they will quote, as has happened to me, they keep saying Parliament is sovereign. The mainstream media keeps saying Parliament is sovereign. And people are actually just accepting this, and they believe that Parliament is sovereign. And the people like yourself and myself, together with lots of other people on Facebook, have been saying, no, that is not true at all.
Absolutely right. And I'm going to start off with a bit of levity, because I like a bit of levity. Adrian told me this joke, and he got it told from Canadians, and I've embellished a little bit. But he complied to bankers and lawyers this. But what do you call 100 MPs on the seabed?
Go on, don't know.
A bloody good start.
Sorry. Yeah, I'd like to see all 650.
Yeah, exactly. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We know that the politicians, they are in bed with the City of London. I'll come on to my second point to prove this. They are in bed with the City of London. They're not in bed with the electorates, the people who put them there. So we have got to fundamentally say, right, let's get back to the common law, get back to trial by jury common law, which we know is supreme over anything that parliamentarians think they can pass, because they are copying what is happening in Europe. In Europe, you are guilty until proved innocent. You have no habeas corpus.
No.
And you have politically appointed judges. And if you do have a jury, and occasionally they do exist, they are led by the judge. They are not allowed to come to their own independent conclusion. So we know that Roman civil law, which stems from the Vatican, and we're going to come on to them later, but everything there is about control over the people. The common law, as codified by King Alfred the Great and the Malmudic laws before that, they are about we the people have the final say through the jury. And there can be no finer way of getting to the truth and getting justice done for everybody.
Yeah, true. But we just got to work out, we're going to have to bring all the different groups together under some sort of umbrella. Because, I mean, I've just been interviewing David Noakes.
Yes, David
with
Noakes,
the CMAF, and that was on the previous Spaces programme. And, you know, he's been subjected to a European arrest warrant. This is something that people like Theresa May and David Cameron, they all voted for it to be handed back in 2014 when we could have pulled out of that commitment. We have agreed to remain in the European arrest warrant earlier on this year. There is no Brexit. Now, I understand that people with a common law background find it strange that Brexit people are still looking for Brexit, because, you know, it's a lot of it is smoke, screen and mirrors, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Everything, I mean, what I find so upsetting is the way our politicians are so ignorant of what they're about. I have an MP, Sarah Wollaston. I don't think she's too happy the fact I've moved down to South Devon, because I've moved into her constituency, because I was making life hell for Tim Farron before that, up in Cumbria. But I went to see, I went to see Sarah Wollaston at one of the rallies at the last year's general election, and I asked her a very, very simple question. And luckily, I had a witness with me, Max, who was with me, and I said, "Sarah, are we a common law country?" And she went, common law. What do you mean exactly? So there we have an MP with 5 years' experience in Parliament, and she has absolutely no idea what the common law is.
But then you've got the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, who says, yes, common law country, Magna Carta.
No, he's a fraud as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said it. I hope we don't get sued. But they don't walk the talk, do they? They say it all like this, but they don't do anything.
Right, well, let's look at it right from the word go. We were taken into the European Union by a paedophile, possibly a murderer of children, Ted Heath. And as far as I'm concerned, we were taken in by unlawful treasonous means, which means basically everything that's happened since should be nullified by a jury. It is as simple as that.
Exactly.
And the very fact that the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and others will not look at that side of the argument for the Brexit debate, it shows that they are implicated. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is what I find so tragic about the Brexit here and the Remain case. Everyone is being totally misled. Europe was set up, the European Union project was set up by the bankers to serve the bankers, and we'll come on to that later. And it was set up by, and I call them now the deep state globalists, because I find we call them 1%. But if you want to accurately describe what they are the deep state globalists.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you've got Ted Heath, who lived in Salisbury, and it's not so far from Salisbury, a country house. There are allegations to be made of the people who own that country house being connected with this new centrist party. There's a meeting on the 15th of May. Miliband was flown in.
It stinks.
It does stink.
A £50 million war chest I mean, the Chartist movement, we've got about 500, it's actually nearly £1,000 at the moment in the kitty, but these buggers have got £500,000 or £500,000 to play, probably more, because effectively the crooks are desperate to keep us in the European Union. Now, I'm actually a European. I actually love Europe. I love traveling Europe. I love the wines. I love the food. I love the culture. But I want my Europe to be a patchwork of sovereign, independent states. And we come together in peace and harmony to decide on the strategic issues like transport or the environment. And let's work together. But let's keep and enjoy each other. Vive la différence. Let's do the French. Vive la différence.
Well, it was exciting, wasn't it? You go to these countries and it would be so totally different. The only things you'd probably moan about was the fact that you might not be able to get a proper cup of tea abroad. But now everything is very similar and you can't always tell, apart from certain architecture, where you are.
Exactly. And it's the corporatization of Europe. Yeah. And with that corporatization comes the Orwellian, we are in charge, we know best, you will do as you're bloody well told.
So, Justin,
and I'm sorry, we are the Brits.
So, Justin, who runs Great Britain? This is a post I put up in Facebook.
Okay, this is an interesting one. If I'm going to be brutally honest, I will give you the latest part of our research. I'm actually going to say it is the Jesuits who ultimately run our country. I'm going to say the City of London, yes, and I'm going to say the Bank for International Settlements. I'm going to say, obviously, some people say the Rothschilds and the Zionist bankers, but I'm actually going to say, if you really go deep down the rabbit hole, all roads seem to lead to Rome, or more accurately, to the Vatican, which is a state in its own right. And I think there's still work to be done. There's still evidence to be obtained. But I think if we want to be brutally honest, I think you've got to start looking. I mean, we know there's a white pope, but how many people know there's a black pope and a grey pope? How many people know that the black pope and the grey pope, between them, they're controlling? You've got some Italian families of ancient noble birth, the Orsinis and stuff. Everyone immediately thinks of Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and so forth. Well, that's what I was thinking. But we're now starting to be given information by insiders. And this is something, Caroline, which is extremely helpful. We know there are people on the inside waiting to make their move once we have an effective grassroots movement that is going to collar the main part, which is the common law trial by jury constitution, to basically get justice back. But secondly, and I'm going to come on to this point, it is about our country taking back complete control of creating, issuing, and controlling its own debt-free and interest-free money based through the Treasury, not the City of London, not the Bank of England, which is a central bank controlled by the Bank for International Settlements, which most people, in fact, I believe in this country, I was told barely 1% of the nation has ever heard of the Bank for International Settlements. And then if asked what it actually does, barely 0. whatever, very few people know about the fact that that is the apex of the entire central banking system. The Bank for International Settlements, it controls 60 of the world's central banks, including the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and the European Central Bank. And it oversees over 95% of the world's money supply. And it has given itself diplomatic immunity. I would love to be able to give myself diplomatic immunity, but they've given it. They have extremely secretive meetings where the governors get invited. The cream of the governors, about 10 of them, get to meet about every 4 to 5, 6 weeks.
Oh, is that in Switzerland?
In Switzerland, at Basel, in the Tower of Basel, which is an ugly building. And I do recommend people just go onto any search engine, put in Bank for International Settlements, look up images, and you'll see pictures of the place. And then if you want a bit of fun, feed in the Vatican Bank, the Bank of the Vatican, and feed images, and you'll see that the two are not dissimilar. And perhaps it's no accident, because I used to believe that at the Bank for International Settlements, basically there's a historian called Carroll Quigley, Professor Carroll Quigley, and I strongly recommend his work. And he said that effectively the governors of the Bank of England and the governors of the Federal Reserve and all the rest of them took their instructions from the big merchant banks. And of course, by that, he really meant the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. But in fact, it looked as though ultimately they take their strategic instructions from the Vatican. It's work in progress. We've still got a lot to do, but it's certainly starting to hint that we are looking at ultimately to the Jesuits and the Vatican for the way the world's money supply is created. And bear in mind, this is money that's created out of thin air as debt. This is not based on gold. It's not based on assets like the Bradbury pound. It is based on absolute thin air. This is money that is just electronically you have. And the Bank of England have admitted this in their quarterly report in spring, I think it was 2014. They actually declared that money is just an exercise of putting figures in one margin and then figures on the other margin, and whoa, we've just invented some money. It's not backed up by anything. It's I promise to pay the bearer the debt of, it's all debt. And can I just say that anyone's watching and they've got a degree in economics, could I suggest they find the waste paper bin and just chuck it in? Because all the economics has been taught through academia is absolutely 100% flawed. And I wouldn't go around bragging you've got a degree in economics, because all you've got is a degree in lies and deception and entrapment.
That's true.
And that's what it is.
It's interesting when you say the Vatican, all roads lead to the Vatican. Incidentally, I'm going to the Vatican in August, but
I was there last year.
But there's been a lot of concern about Islamization, but there's a lot of evidence on the internet that there is a huge link between the two, the Vatican and Islamization.
Divide and rule.
I was basically in a local town today. They had a load of Remainers out campaigning with their berets, with their stars on the berets. And I met a couple from Australia, and they were saying, oh, what do you think about Tommy Robinson? And I was talking them through about common law and freedom of speech, etc., etc. And they accepted everything. I was telling them about Melanie Shaw. I said, well, we need to put far more emphasis now on Melanie Shaw, because hopefully with the plight of Tommy Robinson, your sister organisation, UK Column, has done a lot for Melanie, as I've been also doing some stuff for her. And, I said to them, and they accepted everything. A lot of it was quite new stuff, and they accepted it until it came to the point of the grooming gangs, and I just said there's a link between the Vatican and Islamization, and that was it. That was the red pill they refused to take. And they said thank you very much and walked on.
It's got to be explained to them very carefully. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, with these Muslim grooming gangs, if they go before a jury and they are proved guilty of molesting people underage for sexual purposes and everything else, they go to prison, and the proverbial keys should be thrown away. They should serve at least 20 years, in my opinion, because the common law will take care of that. But what I am concerned about with Tommy Robinson, he has got incredible links with Zionist Israel. I know that Israel is a pariah state. I've studied Israel over a long period of years, and the treatment they've meted out is like apartheid, even against Abyssinian Jews, even against Ethiopian Jews. I mean, they really they're not nice people. Some of the Zionists, they are not the traditional Jews that I know, who are generous, loving, and just like Christians. And I find these Zionists, and when you see some of these settlers talking, it is like looking at some of the worst apartheid you saw in South Africa. I just find it hideous. And when you think what happened to so many Jewish people and others under Nazi Hitler's Nazi Germany, you see them doing the same thing to their own, to the Palestinians and to others. I just find it very, very disturbing that people can view Israel as some sort of wonderful democratic country. We've got to have a level playing field to look at the history of how Israel came about and what they actually do. But as I said at the beginning, I used to think that perhaps the problem lay with that, but no, we can then see a path back to the Vatican. So with radical Islam, with radical Zionism, I'm sorry, I'm urging people just to apply the brakes and let's start looking at the Jesuit influence and the secret societies and everything else. I think we're all going to find that we've all been deceived. And I say to the people of Tommy Robertson, and I have, when I saw the demonstration last Saturday, I know the overwhelming number of people who went on that demonstration were people who are quite rightly concerned about what is happening. The hotheads, the idiots, and I wish they'd grow up, the people who were, tanked up, they were drinking alcohol, they were throwing stuff at the police, looking for a fight, grow up. You have no part to play. Unless, of course, these are agents provocateurs. Because one thing that we know the deep state want is a summer of violence on the streets. And that gives them the excuse to trigger the Orwellian solutions they've got lined up to take away our last freedoms and to see our democracy completely collapse. Please, everybody, we've got to keep this peaceful. I want humor. I want people to be laughing. Let's make fun of these people. I have this vision that we're going to go to the barricades like the French, and we're going to get all the wheelie bins out, and we're going to make sure the wheelie bins have their tops lifted up slightly, because I know that particularly upsets the councils. We've got to use humor. We've got to have a peaceful Gandhi-style approach to things, using our numbers, and we laugh at these people. And when people are laughing, they're not showing fear. And when they're not showing fear, then they will stand up to the magistrates. They will stand up to the judge who is committing high treason by not involving a jury. They will stand up to the MPs with all their pomposity and all the rest of it. And by the way, I don't like swearing, but I hope they use the word bollocks to the MP, because it's a wonderful word to basically take away the MP's self-righteousness and the feeling that we're in control. It's wonderful. No, they're not in control. All they're doing is doing the bidding of the City of London, the Jesuits, and whoever they are, basically the deep state globalists. And they are representing the 1%. They're not representing the 99%. Well, so I really would urge people, peaceful, let's have fun. Let's enjoy overturning the 1%.
Well, it says it all, doesn't it? We've already uncovered for sure in black and white now that we were taken into the EU or EEC then by deception.
Total deception. Treason.
Exactly. Totally against our constitution, our common law, and yet not one MP stands up and says, this is just a pantomime. We don't need to be doing any of this. Let's just cut to the chase. But they don't. So they're all actually in collusion.
And the best thing is, everyone's worried about a hard Brexit because it's going to cost us lots of money. If we resort back to the Bradbury pound, which is sovereign national credit, which is the nation creating, issuing, and controlling as much liquidity that is needed for the NHS, for social welfare, for defence, for setting up businesses with debt-free, interest-free loans, for looking after our strategic industries, whatever it is. And we can do that. It is a fiscal measure, M0 at 100%. It is an accepted fiscal measure. It was very successful in 1914. And we squeeze out the banks. They have no part to play. Over national debt, by the way, we just write off. We just get a jury to annul it because it's been arrived at by completely unlawful, treasonous means.
Most of it's interest anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole thing's just written off. So we're not debt-laden or anything like that. And do you think other countries are not going to do the same once we do this? Every country in the world will do it. And one of the things that's going to disappear is economic migration. What is the point of leaving your country of your birth to go to another country, if your country of birth is now going to have the money to do what is needed to give everybody a thoroughly decent lifestyle. You're just going to, we know, this is what's so funny. We know that everything that the 1% have done is a house of cards, and it will collapse. And the two things which will collapse it is people being in charge by the right of a jury to annul bad legislation, unjust legislation, and two, that we create all the liquidity needed to meet the needs and the prosperity and the happiness of all the people. And it can be done. And if any bloody stupid economist gets in my way and starts saying, well, you got hyperinflation, look what happened in Weimar Republic of Germany. If you look at the Weimar Republic of Germany, you'll know it's the central banks and the private financiers who triggered it. It was not the government. So all I'm urging people is, please don't listen to the economists. Don't listen to the politicians. Do not listen to them, because they are the useful idiots to the globalists, to the deep state globalists. Start listening to yourself. Start listening to common sense. What makes common sense?
Well, Justin, thank you so much for visiting us via Skype today. I would like to use this opportunity just to say to those politicians watching, and I'm sure there'll be some people who will send this video on in an email to their politicians. Your days are numbered. Once we get fully coordinated, people educated in what the 1% are all about, you're fired.
Can I just say, Caroline, if the people want to know what to do, the Chartists have come up with the new People's Charter of 6 requirements. And those 6 requirements will take care of everything. Now, as I said, we've actually got a possibility of a new great charter being formed. We've got a very, very, very good team onto that at the moment. And there is a possibility that over the next year or two, we're going to say to the people, let's have a new Magna Carta, a new Great Charter that endorses the original Great Charter, because there's nothing wrong with it, but let's have a new one that endorses it and takes it into the 21st century so the young people can understand it. Because at the moment, we have got 40, 50, 60-year-olds plus all saying that something is terribly wrong. We've got a lot of youngsters who have been programmed by the system to believe there's nothing wrong. Please, I'm urging those youngsters, please have a look at what's happening. And the New Chartist Movement, website has got all the information and links to other organizations, because we are inclusive. We want to work with all the different organizations. We all subscribe to the 6 requirements so we can become a people's movement, but not hierarchical, not on the point, we have a few leaders like Nigel Farage and all that. No, the actual issues become the leaders, not the people. We are literally going to be a movement without personalities. We are going to be a movement with solutions, and the solutions that will bring down the 1%.
I noticed that in your 6th point, it was about Big Pharma. We've just interviewed David Noakes about the cancer situation there. The Big Pharma, if we can get, most people need the NHS at some point in their lives. And this is, it's a deal breaker, isn't it, really? We're going to be able to get so much support from people when they know that they've been lied to. And a lot of people could be healed.
The NHS, the money is there, the Bradbury pound, reintroducing the Bradbury pound sovereign national credit. You will not have any deficit for the NHS. We've just lost a local hospital in Dartmouth. I talked to Sarah Wollaston, my MP. She just says, oh, well, it has to be done because we've got to find the money for it. I told her about the Bradbury. She ran away. That is the calibre of our MPs. Pathetic.
Yeah. Well, they're just trying to stick a sticking plaster over. I mean, we've got the problems with the police, the judges, the MPs. And so it's got to be enough's enough. So we just need to build our armies together.
Absolutely. And it will happen. It has to happen. We've got the solutions. The longer as people stick to the solutions and stop trying to take on all the different symptoms, because you won't win, because they'll always win, go for the absolute solutions, the 2 big solutions. We, the people, are sovereign, in charge, courtesy of trial by jury. And 2, we create and control all our own money, courtesy of sovereign national credit, the Bradbury pound in our case, the greenback dollar in America and elsewhere. It's been done, it works, And the most important thing is the banks and the City of London and the Bank for International Settlements and all these organisations become redundant and will collapse.
Whoa. Right, Justin,
Yeah,
lovely to speak to you. And no doubt I'll be speaking to you probably next week.
I'm sure we will, Caroline. I'm sure we will. It's been great fun.
Have a good weekend, Justin. And thank you so much from rainy Wiltshire for your contribution today.
Lovely.
See you again.
All right, Caroline. All
Thanks,
the best.
Justin. Bye.
Bye-bye.